In 2006, I started a brand called ScrewAttack, which would later go on to have over 4 billion views of its content viewed across the world, do live events, and even publish our own video games. But do you know how I got started? Hey everybody, I'm Craig. You may know me as Stuttering Craig from ScrewAttack way back in the day. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for finding my channel. Hopefully you smash the thumbs up button and smash the subscribe button if you like to hear these behind the scenes stories here on the channel. I would love to do more of them, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss them. So how did ScrewAttack start? Well, I wish I could tell you this is one of those crazy venture capital things where you go out and you go get money and you card out. It was nothing like that. Nothing like that. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that world existed when ScrewAttack started. ScrewAttack started when I was about 24 years old. I just finished college. Now, 24 is pretty late to be finishing college. I actually took 6 years to get through school. Started school in 18 and took 2 years to do some things in between. I interned at Disney World in college. I went out and played slam ball, which some of you guys may know, and I eventually ended up finishing school after 6 years. I finished up school and I was working at a bar in the big Gaylord Texan in Grapevine, Texan. It was a big sports bar, and I was like essentially this guy who changed the channels in the big sports bar. It's really silly. It's kind of crazy. So I had this friend named Tom, and Tom and I had known each other for a long time. A lot of you remember him as Handsome Tom. So Tom and I were friends for about a decade. We knew each other through high school. That's where we first met when we played basketball together. And that's pretty much where most of our relationship was spent, basketball and video games. So we hung out a lot, and we were both getting through school, and I had finished up school, and we both worked together at another job prior to that. And so we spent a lot of time together. And one day, we were just talking, and I remember saying something to the effect of like, do they do any video game radio shows? Because that was the original idea, was to have a radio show about video games. And saying, well, hey, let's just give this a try. Surely nobody's doing a radio show about video games. Well, I come to find out that later on, after we launched our first radio show about video games called Side Scrollers, that everybody's doing them. Now, obviously not to the effect they are right now, but they're called podcasts on the internet. So I learned about that really quick. But long before that, I was like, hey, we should do this. So we started talking about it and being like, well, we should do this. And I had this slight background in radio. I interned at a pretty popular radio station here in Dallas called The Ticket. It's a really popular sports station, and I got just a little bit of a background in radio, and I also did some radio work in college and stuff, so I thought I had a little more knowledge than I actually did. So I started putting together like a format for what this show would look like with different segments, kind of like an actual radio show, and that would eventually become Side Scrollers, the show. So we had this idea for this show. It's called Side Scrollers, and it's funny, we actually did some test shows really early on. I know this because here's the first one. This is from December 27th, 2005. It's the first ever Side Scrollers recording. It is horrendous. Let me tell you that right now. It is so bad. But I have it. And I know that was our first recording we ever did. It was a couple days after Christmas we got together, and we literally held a mic together in front of each other, and one of us talked in one side, the other one talked in the other side. And that is how Side Scrollers was first done, just by talking into a microphone, into a voice recorder. You know, today you can get your phone and you can just talk into it, or you have these nice microphones, and everything is so much more accessible. And it was so much different back then. The idea of taking audio and putting it on your computer, and it was a lot different process. I mean, this is a long time ago, and the internet was not what it was today. This is when YouTube was just starting out, and we didn't even know YouTube existed at this time. It was just this other site. So hold on. I realized after recording this, you guys mostly don't know what I'm doing right now, which obviously here on YouTube, but I also stream on twitch.tv/StutteringCraig. So come and find me over there, hit the follow button, all that stuff. But my main project right now is something that actually would have helped me tremendously when ScrewAttack started. It's called Collaborator Club, and the long and short of it is it allows creators on YouTube and Twitch the ability to find each other very easily, because the best way to grow in all my years has been through collaboration. You think about growing on game trailers, or growing with James, or the number of different creators that came up through ScrewAttack. When you work with other people, it just helps you tremendously. So go to collaboratorclub.com. You can see it right there. It's collaboratorclub.com, and head on over there and check it out. You can actually use my name, Craig, at checkout if you want to do the premium version or whatever. But it is free, so you can go check it out for yourself. Go to collaboratorclub.com. I just wanted to get that in there real quick. I appreciate you guys listening to the story. Let's get back to it. In 2005, we start messing around, and then we have this podcast or this radio show called Side Scrollers. And why was it called Side Scrollers? I don't really know. I think it's because I just loved classic gameplay, running from left to right and jumping from point A to point B. And Side Scrollers just kind of fit. I don't know. I named it that, and that was kind of that. I didn't really have much more to it. So we had this podcast called Side Scrollers, and actually Tom and I were the Side Scrollers. If you were to listen to the original first few episodes of Side Scrollers, we were called the Side Scrollers. And then eventually it became the ScrewAttack. Now, how did ScrewAttack become? We knew we needed to have a place for the people to go to listen to this podcast. So we went out, and I think we actually looked for like sidescrollers.com, and we looked for other different websites for that. And I wanted to have a domain that was really strong and powerful. Something that was like in video games, that was like the best power up in the games. So actually, I remember looking for redring.com, because Red Ring was actually the strongest ring you can get in Zelda. You get the blue ring and then the red ring, and then your Link's the strongest you can possibly be. But we actually, when we got to look for Red Ring, I think it was actually taken. So it was just kind of ironic, because had we got Red Ring, after everything that happened with like the 360 and the Red Ring of Death and everything, it actually would have been a really great domain. But after that, I remember saying to Tom, well, what about ScrewAttack? And we were on GoDaddy typing it in, and I remember we were both just like, nah, that's got to be taken. But we'll just look anyway. So we type it in, and sure enough, ScrewAttack is not taken. And it's like, whoa, well, there it is. that is how ScrewAttack got its name. Now the website itself was a lot different process. I didn't know anything about building HTML or any sort of coding. And this is not like today, where you can go to any sort of blogging website and the site essentially creates itself. There's no drag and drop. Everything was manually coded. And my older brother had a pretty good background in design. So I asked him, I begged him, I said, can you please just make me a website? Just make me a website so I can put this stuff on it. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to add things to it. And my brother lived in California, still does. And he made me the most bare website in the world. It was a black site with ScrewAttack header at the top, which the first logo for ScrewAttack was made by my brother Brad. This was anything but a venture capital funded thing. We didn't go out and get any money for this. Like I said, I didn't even know that world existed. So my older brother made the website. My younger brother made the logo. I made the content with Tom, and that's essentially how it got started. Now, it was kind of fun because it was so adventurous. Obviously, we're young. We don't have anything to lose. I don't have any kids or I'm not married or anything like that. So really, all time and effort was devoted into ScrewAttack at that time, at least from my side. Tom still held on to his job. I actually quit my job shortly after ScrewAttack got started, and it was one of those things where I knew early on that we had to do something that was going to make us different. And we were just doing this podcast, Side Scrollers, and it was only once a week. And this is a different time on the internet. You're going to hear that a lot. This is a different time where now content is constantly flowing, constantly. But back then, the idea, like some major gaming websites didn't even update every day. You go to major gaming news sites, and now Twitter is constantly updating, and Facebook, and all these social media sites and websites. Like, if you're not updating constantly, you're out. But back then, I want to do something that was going to separate us. And so the idea was, we want to do something different every single day. So the original tagline for ScrewAttack, after a few months of doing the podcast, I'd say probably around the summer, the idea of doing something original every day was first brought up. And so it was ScrewAttack.com, something original every freaking day. So you'd go to ScrewAttack and you'd go watch your video for the day. And sometimes it was 30 seconds long, sometimes it was 3 minutes long. But 3 minutes was a really long video back then. I mean, with server costs and the idea that the internet was moving so fast, we had this mindset that you kept your video short, because if it was too long, people would just pop out now and they would just go to the next thing. and they'd hit the little red X. But now obviously the internet's changed so much since then, where we have long form content that's literally hours long. People sit down watching podcasts on YouTube and such. I mean, this video itself is going to be considerably longer than anything we ever made back then. So, you know, one more side note real quick before we go on, which, by the way, this story will continue. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss a story, because this is a multi-layered story that goes on and on and on. Eventually I realized that we had to produce something original every day, right? And that whole thing stemmed from a trip to Puerto Vallarta, where Tom and I went with our girlfriends at the time, and we went down to Puerto Vallarta and we brought a video camera. Not a video camera, but an actual video camera. So we brought a video camera down, and you know, we're young, we're stupid, and we're walking around, and there's all these street vendors down in Puerto Vallarta. And this has never been shown on video. I don't even know where the footage is. I legitimately have no idea. But the thing that kicked off the whole Something Original Every Day was we went down there, saw these street vendors, and we went into a store and we bought luchador masks and Speedos. And we put on luchador masks, we took off our shirts, put on some Speedos, and we walked around Puerto Vallarta, and we were a huge hit. We had restaurants calling us in, making us come on in, just because we were an attraction. And we videotaped this, and our girlfriends are just like, oh, what is happening? And we got done, and I remember thinking, like, that was really fun. Like, I could do that every day. And that is where Something Original Every Freaking Day came from. But we realized we couldn't do it ourselves. So I was like, I got to go find people to help fill out the rest of these days, which is where we got introduced to one of the most iconic people in internet history, James Rolfe, and the Angry Nintendo Nerd, as well as Jonathan Mann, GameJew, and Awesome Video Games, 3 very early partners, which the story about how that happened, well, that's for another time. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss those stories. And of course, watch my gameplays throughout the week. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys enjoy this, please give this episode a thumbs up and share it with people who like internet history. I got a lot of stories I can't wait to share with you guys. And please go watch some of my gameplays. I do two gameplay videos every single day as I'm playing through the entire NES library right now. Appreciate you guys popping in. Thanks so much for listening to me ramble for a few minutes about the internet past. See you guys later.